Through champagne bubbles that catch the chandelier light, Evelyn Brooks watches Regina Park orchestrate her public execution at Seoul's most exclusive Christmas gala. Her hands steady despite the slap mark burning across her cheek while the entire room of crime lords and socialites pretends not to notice. Her mistress, Regina Park, circling her like a predator in teal silk as James Hwang stands silent, his tattooed hand adjusting his cufflinks. Both of them smiling at the maid they're about to destroy. But none of them see the phone vibrating in Evelyn's apron pocket. None of them recognize the caller ID flashing on the screen. Shadow King. None of them know that the silent woman kneeling beside broken glass is Evelyn Brooks, the only daughter of Marcus Brooks, the man who launders billions through 12 countries and could collapse their empire with a single phone call. Before continuing, comment where in the world you're watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. Evelyn's fingers close around shards of the stolen ornament Regina smashed. Her knees pressing into Persian carpet worth more than most people's homes. While Regina's guests whisper behind crystal glasses, their Christmas gala laughter echoing off walls paid for with money, Evelyn's father moves through shadows. Living in a mansion whose true owner is a name they never bothered to investigate. Finally, Regina announces to the glittering crowd, her voice dripping with theatrical cruelty as she dangles a diamond brooch above Evelyn's head. I found this in the help's quarters. My family heirloom. Stolen by the girl we so generously gave a job to. But the woman they call, the help, has a father whose network could erase their bloodline from every ledger in the underworld. The woman they call a thief owns information that could send James to prison for life. And the silence Evelyn maintains isn't submission, it's calculation. James steps closer, his cologne expensive as he towers over where Evelyn kneels surrounded by glass and accusation. You should beg, he says, his voice void of emotion. My wife wants to hear you beg before I decide what to do with you. Regina laughs from beside the Christmas tree, her manicured hand resting on her champagne flute, her eyes glittering with the same cold light as the ornaments. On your knees in the snow outside, she purrs. I want the guests to watch from the windows. Entertainment for Christmas Eve. The room holds its breath, Korea's elite waiting for the show to begin, Regina's allies raising their glasses in anticipation. To loyalty, someone shouts, and the room drinks to Evelyn's humiliation like she's already forgotten. Evelyn's fingers uncurl from the glass shards, leaving tiny cuts across her palms. She thinks about the day her father called her into his office 3 years ago, told her she needed to learn what power really costs before she could inherit his throne. Sent her into the Hwang household under a false name, desperate to prove she wasn't just a Nepo baby riding on daddy's empire. Desperate to prove she could survive hell before she ruled it. But as Evelyn slowly rises from the carpet, her eyes don't search for escape. They lock onto Regina with the cold precision of someone who spent 3 years studying every weakness, cataloging every mistake, waiting for exactly this moment. She brushes glass from her uniform with deliberate calm. And speaks 5 words that shatter the crystal silence. Your time is up, Regina. James's phone rings. The custom tone he programmed for only one contact. The room freezes as he looks at the screen, and for the first time all evening, fear flashes across the Mafia boss's tattooed features. Because the name on his phone isn't one you ignore. And the maid standing in the center of his ballroom just smiled. The Murano glass angel shatters against marble exactly 12 minutes before the first guests are scheduled to arrive. Regina's scream cuts through the kitchen like a blade. What have you done? Evelyn stands frozen by the serving counter, silver tray still balanced in her hands, champagne flutes untouched. She was 10 feet away from the mantelpiece. Nowhere near the ornament that Regina just swept off its perch with a deliberate flick of her wrist. But the teal-suited woman is already backing toward the doorway, her hand pressed to her chest in theatrical horror, her voice rising to ensure the catering staff witnesses everything. James. James, come quickly. The angel had belonged to James's grandmother. Brought from Venice in 1952. The only piece of the Hwang family's pre-war history that survived their rise through Seoul's underworld. Regina mentioned it at least once a week, usually while Evelyn polished it, always with the same warning. If you so much as chip a wing, you'll wish I'd killed you quickly. Now it lies in crystalline shards across the ballroom entrance, catching the light from the chandelier like diamonds scattered across a crime scene. James appears in the doorway, his tailored jacket unbuttoned, a tumbler of whiskey still in his tattooed hand. His eyes move from the glass to Regina to Evelyn with the cold assessment of a man who's ordered executions over smaller infractions. She knocked it over. Regina's voice breaks perfectly, tears already forming. Real ones. She's good at this. I watched her dust too close to the edge. I told her to be careful. I told her. I was across the room, Evelyn says quietly. With the champagne. Regina's head snaps toward her, and for just a flash, Evelyn sees it. The satisfaction. The hunger. This is what Regina has been building toward for weeks, maybe months. Every small cruelty, every impossible task, every humiliation designed to provoke a reaction that never came. Until now. Until Christmas Eve. Until there's an audience. Are you calling me a liar? Regina's voice drops to something dangerous. In my own home? Not your home, Evelyn thinks. The deed carries a shell company name. 3 layers deep. Owned by a trust. Controlled by the Brooks family financial network. But she says nothing, just sets down the champagne tray with steady hands. James drains his whiskey. Pick it up. James, she should be. I said pick it up. He's looking at Evelyn now, and there's something in his expression she can't quite read. A warning, maybe. Or a test. Every piece. Before the guests arrive. With your hands. Regina's smile spread slow and poisonous. No gloves. I want to make sure she finds every single shard. Every fragment of what she destroyed. The doorbell chimes. Early arrivals. Voices in the foyer, the houseman greeting Seoul's elite, offering to take coats and presenting champagne. The Christmas gala beginning whether the ballroom is ready or not. Evelyn lowers herself to her knees on the marble. The cold seeps through her black uniform as she reaches for the first piece of broken glass. It cuts into her palm immediately, a thin line of red welling up against her brown skin. Above her, Regina sighs with contentment. Hurry now. We have guests. And Evelyn? She leans down, her perfume suffocating. If there's even one piece left when I inspect, I'll make you swallow it. The first guests enter the ballroom in a wave of laughter and expensive cologne, champagne glasses already in hand. None of them offer to help the maid bleeding on their hostess's floor. The glass cuts deeper with each piece Evelyn collects, but the pain feels distant, muffled by memory. 3 years ago. Her father's office in the Geneva compound. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a lake so still it looked like polished steel. Marcus Brooks standing with his back to her, hands clasped behind him, his reflection watching her in the glass. You think you're ready to inherit my empire because you have an MBA from Wharton, he'd said. His voice quiet. Always quiet. Men who need to shout have already lost control. You think understanding ledgers and offshore accounts makes you qualified to move billions through shadows. Evelyn had stood straighter, prepared to argue. 25 years old and convinced her degrees, her languages, her strategic mind were enough. Her father turned. His eyes, the same dark brown as hers, held something that looked almost like pity. Power without humility is just tyranny waiting to collapse. And tyrants never see the knife coming. In the ballroom, someone laughs too loudly. Champagne clinks. Regina is telling the story of the broken angel, her voice carrying. 3 years we've employed her. 3 years of charity. And this is how she repays us. Evelyn's fingers close around another shard. Blood mixes with Murano glass, both catching the light. I'm sending you somewhere, her father had continued, walking to his desk where a thin file waited. Not as my daughter. Not as an heiress. As nothing. She'd stared at him. What? The Huangs. Korean syndicate. Growing operation, impressive expansion, but James is young. Impulsive. His wife is a liability he can't see yet because he mistakes cruelty for strength. Marcus opened the file. A photo of Regina Park. Another of James Huang, his tattoos visible at his collar. You'll work in their household. Lowest position. Maid. The word had hit like a slap. You'll learn what it means to be invisible. To watch power move around you while you're treated as furniture. You'll learn who people really are when they think you don't matter. He'd looked up then, his expression unreadable. And when you've survived that, when you've maintained your dignity while they strip you of everything else, then you'll understand what it takes to lead an empire that deals with people like the Huangs. Evelyn had wanted to refuse. To storm out. To prove him wrong some other way. But she'd seen the challenge in his eyes. The question he wasn't asking out loud, are you my daughter, or just a girl with my last name? So she'd gone. 3 years of invisible cruelty. 3 years of Regina's games, James's cold indifference, a household that treated her like something tracked in on expensive shoes. 3 years of watching Regina undermine James's business relationships with her need for petty dominance. 3 years of cataloging every weakness, every crack in their glittering facade. 3 years of learning exactly what her father meant. A shoe appears in Evelyn's peripheral vision. Patent leather. Expensive. A guest crouching down with champagne-sweet breath. Poor thing. Did you really steal from them? Evelyn looks up. The woman's face is familiar. Wife of a district prosecutor. Someone important enough that Regina will be watching this interaction. No, ma'am, Evelyn says softly. Respectfully. Playing the role she's perfected. The woman's pity is genuine. It always is, from those who've never been powerless. She stands, shaking her head, already forgetting the maid as she rejoins the party. But James is watching from across the room. His expression hasn't changed. And for the first time tonight, Evelyn wonders if her father told him everything, or only enough to make this test more interesting. The ballroom fills with souls elite like wolves gathering for a feast, and Regina waits until she has the perfect audience before she strikes. Evelyn has just finished collecting the last fragments of glass, her palms crosshatched with cuts, when Regina's voice rings out above the quartet playing Vivaldi. Everyone, please. A moment of your attention. The music stops. Crystal glasses pause mid-sip. 70 of Korea's most dangerous people turn toward their hostess with the practiced interest of predators sensing blood. Regina stands beside the Christmas tree, backlit by 10,000 lights, holding a leather portfolio like a prosecutor presenting evidence. Her smile is radiant. I'm afraid we have a rather serious matter to address before we continue our celebration. James sets down his whiskey. His expression shifts from bored tolerance to something sharper, more alert. This wasn't planned. Whatever Regina is doing, she's gone off script. Earlier this evening, our maid destroyed a priceless family heirloom. An accident, perhaps. We were willing to be merciful. Regina's voice drips with false magnanimity. But then our head of security conducted a routine inspection of the staff quarters. She opens the portfolio. Papers spill out. Even from across the room, Evelyn can see the Huang Syndicate letterhead. Financial statements. Transaction records. The kind of documents that live in James's private safe behind a painting in his study. The kind of documents that get people disappeared. These were found hidden beneath the maid's mattress. Regina's eyes find Evelyn, and the triumph there is incandescent. Copies of my husband's private business ledgers. Financial records. Bank routing numbers. Everything someone would need to steal from us. Or worse, she pauses, letting the implication hang, to sell information to our competitors. The room erupts in murmurs. A woman near the fireplace gasps. Someone else whispers about informants, about the last person who tried to compromise the Huang operation. How they found him in the Han River in pieces. Evelyn's heart rate doesn't change. Her breathing stays steady. Because she knows exactly when those documents were planted. This morning, while she was polishing silver in the kitchen. She'd heard footsteps in the staff wing but thought nothing of it. Regina had been patient. Meticulous. This wasn't impulse, this was premeditation. James moves through the crowd like a shark cutting through water. His hand extends toward the portfolio. Regina surrenders it with theatrical reluctance, playing the dutiful wife bringing her husband's betrayal to light. He flips through pages. His jaw tightens. These aren't just any documents, they're the ones that outline his newest expansion into Tokyo, the deal that's supposed to cement the Huang family's position as the dominant syndicate in East Asia. The deal that 3 rival families would kill to sabotage. Evelyn. His voice is flat. Empty. The tone he uses right before someone stops existing. Come here. The crowd parts. Evelyn walks forward, leaving bloody footprints on white marble, her uniform torn at the sleeve from kneeling in glass. Every eye in the room follows her with the fascination of people watching an execution. She stops 3 feet from James. Close enough to see the tattoo that curves along his collarbone. A dragon's tail. The mark of his rank. These documents were in your room, he says. Not a question. A statement of fact that demands response. Yes, Evelyn answers. Because they were, even if she didn't put them there. Regina's smile widens. She thinks she's won. She thinks the next words out of James's mouth will be Evelyn's death sentence. She doesn't see his hand trembling slightly as he closes the portfolio. James's hand closes around Evelyn's upper arm, his grip firm enough to bruise. Upstairs. Now. The crowd shifts with anticipation. Someone whispers about the soundproof study. Another mentions the last person James interrogated privately, how the screaming stopped after 20 minutes and the body was never found. Regina raises her champagne glass in a mock toast as James drags Evelyn toward the grand staircase. Don't be long, darling. We have a party to enjoy. The study door closes with a heavy click. James releases Evelyn's arm and crosses to the bar cart, pouring 2 fingers of scotch with hands that are steadier than they were downstairs. The room smells like leather and old wood, walls lined with books that have never been read, a space designed to intimidate. Evelyn stands near the door, waiting. Her palms still bleed from the glass. Her uniform is ruined. She looks every inch the desperate maid caught stealing from her employers. James drains half the scotch in one swallow. Then he turns, sets down the glass, and does something that shatters reality more completely than any broken ornament. He bows. Not a casual nod. A full formal bow. 90 degrees. The kind of respect given to someone who outranks you in every way that matters. When he straightens, his expression is carefully neutral. Miss Brooks. I apologize for the theater downstairs, but your father insisted on authenticity. The words hang in the air like smoke. Evelyn's carefully maintained composure cracks just slightly. How long have you known? 6 weeks. James moves to his desk, unlocks a drawer, pulls out a medical kit. Your father called me personally. Told me you'd been with us for nearly 3 years as part of some elaborate character assessment. He wanted to know if you'd broken. If you'd compromised. If you'd used your real identity to make your life easier. He gestures for her hands. Evelyn doesn't move. I told him no, James continues, his voice quiet. That you'd endured my wife's cruelty with more dignity than most of my soldiers show under torture. That you never once acted like anything other than what you appeared to be. Then why didn't you stop her? The question comes out harder than Evelyn intended. 3 years of silence, and now her voice wants to escape. James's jaw tightens. Because your father asked me not to. He said the test only worked if you had to survive it alone. No intervention. No mercy. Just you against Regina's need to destroy anything she perceives as beneath her. He sets the medical kit on the desk between them. But tonight she crossed a line. Planted evidence. Turned a test into something that could get you killed in front of witnesses. That wasn't part of the arrangement. Evelyn finally moves forward, lets him clean the cuts on her palms with antiseptic that burns. The documents are garbage. Fake accounts I created last month when I realized Regina was planning something. His touch is surprisingly gentle for a man with dragon tattoos crawling up his forearms. Nothing in that portfolio could actually harm my operation. But they look real enough that she thinks she's finally found a way to eliminate you. Why does she hate me so much? James wraps gauze around her right hand. Because you never flinched. 3 years of her games, and you never gave her the satisfaction of breaking you. It drove her insane. His phone buzzes. A text. He glances at the screen and his expression shifts. Your father wants to speak with you. Now. Before we go back downstairs. He hands Evelyn the phone. The caller ID reads, Shadow King. Evelyn's father speaks for exactly 90 seconds. His instructions are precise, clinical, delivered in the same tone he uses to move billions across borders. When the call ends, she hands the phone back to James with hands that no longer shake. He wants me to make an entrance, she says. James nods once. The blue room. Second door on the left. Everything you need is already there. She finds the dress hanging like a thread against the window. Midnight black silk that catches light like oil on water. Custom tailored. Valentino, if the label is accurate. Jewelry laid out on velvet, diamonds that belonged to a Russian oligarch before her father acquired his entire estate in a hostile takeover. Shoes that cost more than Regina spent on the entire Christmas party. Evelyn strips off the ruined uniform, washes the blood from her hands, and transforms into someone Regina Park has never seen before. The woman in the mirror looks like she was born wearing power. Owns it. Breathes it. Downstairs, the party has reached its peak. Regina holds court near the Christmas tree, entertaining a circle of admirers with an embellished version of the Maid's betrayal. How she personally discovered the theft. How generous she was to not have Evelyn killed immediately. James stands on the landing, champagne glass in hand, waiting for the exact moment. The quartet finishes their piece. The room settles into expectant silence. Ladies and gentlemen, James announces, his voice carrying the authority of a man accustomed to being obeyed. Thank you for joining us on this special evening. Before we toast to the new year and new beginnings, I'd like to introduce someone very important. Regina's smile is predatory. She thinks he's about to make an example of the maid. Drag her out in handcuffs, perhaps. Let the guests watch justice delivered in real time. Many of you know me as a businessman, James continues. But everything I've built exists because of partnerships. Alliances. And trust. He looks toward the staircase. Tonight, I have the honor of hosting the daughter of my most valuable partner. Evelyn appears at the top of the grand staircase. The room freezes. She descends slowly, each step deliberate, the dress moving like liquid shadow around her legs. Diamonds catch the chandelier light, throwing fractals across marble. Her posture is perfect, not the hunched deference of a servant, but the straight-backed confidence of someone who's never had to prove her worth. The prosecutor's wife recognizes her first. Her champagne glass slips from nerveless fingers, shattering on the floor. That's the maid. But even as she says it, she knows how absurd it sounds. This woman descending the stairs doesn't look like anyone's servant. She looks like the person servants work for. Regina's face drains of color. Her hand grips James's arm hard enough to leave marks. What is this? James, what are you? Allow me to introduce Miss Evelyn Brooks, James says, his voice cutting through the rising murmurs like a blade. Daughter of Marcus Brooks, whose financial network handles approximately 40% of the capital moving through East Asian markets. The room erupts. Voices overlapping. Someone pulls out their phone, presumably searching for confirmation. Another guest backs away from Regina like proximity to her might be contagious. Evelyn reaches the bottom of the staircase. She doesn't look at Regina. Doesn't acknowledge the woman who spent 3 years treating her like trash. Instead, She accepts a champagne glass from a waiter who actually bows, as he serves her. Miss Brooks has been conducting an extended evaluation of our operations, James continues. Living among us. Learning our business. Assessing whether the Huang family is worthy of her father's continued investment. Regina's champagne glass falls, crystal exploding at her feet. The phone rings while Regina is still staring at the shattered champagne glass at her feet, her mind trying to reconcile the maid with the woman and Valentino standing 10 feet away. James pulls his cell from his jacket pocket. The custom ringtone, Chopin's funeral march, makes several guests visibly tense. Everyone in this room knows what that sound means. It's Marcus Brooks, James announces, his voice carefully neutral. He looks at Evelyn. Your father requests speaker. The room goes silent in a way that even the broken ornament didn't achieve. This is the kind of silence that precedes executions, coups, the fall of empires. Marcus Brooks doesn't make social calls. He doesn't do small talk. When the Shadow King speaks, fortunes evaporate and men disappear. James sets the phone on the grand piano, taps the speaker button. Mr. Brooks. Good evening. James. The voice that fills the ballroom is quiet, refined, almost gentle. Which somehow makes it more terrifying. I understand my daughter just made her introduction. Yes, sir. The guests are. I'm not interested in the guests. A pause. In the background of the call, something that might be papers shuffling. Or might be nothing. Marcus Brooks is a man who understands the power of silence. I'm calling to inform you that as of midnight tonight, all Brooks family funding will be withdrawn from Huang operations. The room reacts like he's announced a bombing. A woman near the fireplace gasps. One of James's business partners actually stumbles backward into a side table. James's face goes carefully blank. Sir, if I may ask. $340 million in operating capital. Gone. The Singapore shipping routes we opened for you. Closed. The banking relationships in Tokyo that were going to facilitate your expansion. Severed. Marcus's voice never rises. Never needs to. Every door I opened for you over the past 6 months will close before sunrise. Regina makes a small sound. Almost a whimper. She's not stupid, she understands numbers. 340 million represents the entire foundation of James's planned expansion. Without it, the Tokyo deal collapses. The territory acquisitions die. The Huang family's position in the syndicate hierarchy plummets overnight. May I ask what prompted this decision? James's voice is steady, but Evelyn can see the muscle jumping in his jaw. Hospitality, James. Or rather, the lack of it. Papers definitely shuffling now. My daughter came to your home as a guest conducting private business evaluation. She lived under your roof for 3 years. And during that time, your wife treated her like vermin. Regina's legs seem to give out. She catches herself on a chair, her teal suit suddenly looking cheap under the chandelier light. The broken ornament. The glass she was forced to clean with bare hands while your guests arrived. The planted evidence designed to justify her murder. Marcus continues in that same conversational tone. But most importantly, the 3 years of systematic degradation that preceded tonight. Did you think I wasn't receiving reports? James's eyes cut to Evelyn. She keeps her expression neutral, champagne glass steady. A man who cannot control his household cannot be trusted with my empire's resources, Marcus says. The Brooks family does not invest in chaos. Mr. Brooks, if you'll allow me to make amends. Amends are made with action, not words. My daughter will explain the terms under which we might reconsider our position. Good evening. The line goes dead. 70 of Seoul's most powerful people stare at Evelyn Brooks like she's just revealed herself to be holding a detonator. Which, in a sense, she is. Regina's voice cracks through the silence like breaking ice. James, please. You have to understand, I didn't know. How could I have known? She reaches for him across the space that suddenly feels like a canyon, her manicured fingers grasping at air. But James steps back, his expression transforming from shock into something colder. The businessman calculating losses. The syndicate leader identifying weakness in his own ranks. 3 years, he says quietly. Dangerously. 3 years she was in our home, and you never once thought to verify her background? To ask questions? To wonder why Marcus Brooks personally arranged for her placement through our hiring agency? Regina's mouth opens. Closes. The prosecutor's wife inches away from her, champagne glass abandoned. Other guests follow suit, a slow migration that leaves Regina isolated beside the Christmas tree like a defendant awaiting verdict. I thought, Regina starts, but James cuts her off with a gesture that makes several people flinch. You thought she was nothing. That's the problem. He moves toward her with the predatory grace of a man accustomed to violence. You humiliated someone who controlled our entire financial future because it entertained you. Because you needed to feel powerful. She was a maid. Regina's voice rises, desperate now, the careful socialite mask cracking. She cleaned toilets. She served drinks. How was I supposed to know? Due diligence, Regina. James's hand shoots out, grabs her wrist. Not gently. The most basic fucking principle of our business. Know who you're dealing with. Always. He twists her arm slightly, exposing the diamond bracelet encircling her wrist. The same one she was wearing when she accused Evelyn of theft. His other hand moves to the brooch pinned to her lapel, the family heirloom she claimed Evelyn stole. These pieces, James says, his voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom, belong to my family. Gifts from my grandmother. Assets of the Huang estate. Regina's eyes widen. She knows what's coming. You wore them like trophies while you destroyed our most important business relationship. His fingers work the brooch clasp with surgical precision. It comes free, leaving a small tear in her expensive silk. You used them as props in your theater while you cost us $340 million. The bracelet comes off next. Then the necklace, a 3-strand pearl choker that Regina wore in every society photo, the piece she claimed defined her status as James Huang's wife. James, no. Please. Not in front of everyone. You wanted an audience. He drops the jewelry into a crystal bowl on the piano with a sound like bones settling. You specifically orchestrated tonight to have witnesses for your cruelty. So now they can witness this. The earrings last. Diamond drops that cost more than luxury cars. Regina's hands fly to her ears protectively, but James is faster, stronger, inevitable. They join the rest with a musical clink. Stripped of her armor, Regina looks smaller somehow. Ordinary. Just a woman in a torn teal suit standing in the ruins of her own making. James turns to Evelyn, the jewelry glittering between them like evidence at a trial. Miss Brooks. These belong to my family, but the choice of what happens to them, and to her, is yours now. The room holds its breath, waiting to see what mercy looks like when it comes from someone who spent 3 years learning to survive without it. Evelyn sets down her champagne glass on the piano beside the bowl of Regina's jewelry. The crystal makes no sound against mahogany, but everyone in the room flinches anyway. Power doesn't need to be loud when it's absolute. My father built his empire on a simple principle, she begins, her voice carrying the same quiet authority as Marcus Brooks himself. Competence is rewarded. Liability is eliminated. The only question is how permanently. Regina makes a sound somewhere between a sob and a protest. James's hand on her shoulder silences it. The Huang operation has value, Evelyn continues, walking slowly around the piano, her heels clicking against marble like a countdown. Your shipping routes are efficient. Your distribution network is sophisticated. The Tokyo expansion, despite tonight's setback, shows strategic vision. She pauses, letting the compliment land. My father's withdrawal was meant to prove a point, not destroy a profitable partnership. Relief flickers across James's face. Just barely. Just enough. So here are the terms under which Brooks' funding will be restored. Evelyn stops walking, stands framed by the Christmas tree's lights like a portrait of judgment. Full reinstatement of the $340 million. Plus an additional $100 million for the Tokyo deal. Banking relationships re-established. Singapore routes reopened. The room exhales collectively. One of James's partners actually grins, already calculating profit margins. In exchange, Evelyn says, and the temperature drops 10 degrees, Regina Park leaves Seoul tonight. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Tonight. Regina's head snaps up. You can't. There's a village, Evelyn continues as if she hasn't spoken, approximately 300 kilometers north of here. Rural. Remote. No luxury hotels. No society galas. No staff to abuse. She picks up the bowl of jewelry, lets the diamonds catch the light. You'll work there. Real work. Manual labor if that's what's available. You'll live in whatever housing is provided. You'll survive on whatever you earn. James. Regina turns to her husband, mascara starting to run, the perfect facade crumbling. You can't let her do this. I'm your wife. Tell her. You were my wife, James says, and there's something almost like pity in his voice. Almost. Past tense. As of tonight. Divorce papers will be filed in the morning. You'll receive no settlement. No alimony. No Huang family support of any kind. That's illegal. Korean law requires. Korean law requires good faith, Evelyn interrupts. You planted evidence to justify murdering someone under your own roof. In front of witnesses. Several of whom are prosecutors, judges, and police commissioners. She gestures to the crowd. I'm sure they'd be fascinated to hear the details in court. Or you could take the village. The choice hangs in the air like a noose. Regina looks around the ballroom desperately, searching for allies, for sympathy, for anyone who might intervene. But Korea's elite have already made their calculations. The woman who courted their favor for years is suddenly radioactive. Toxic. A liability none of them can afford to defend. Transportation is waiting, James says flatly. You have 20 minutes to pack one bag. Nothing designer. Nothing valuable. Practical clothes only. Regina's legs finally give out completely. She collapses beside the Christmas tree, surrounded by broken glass that isn't hers anymore, wearing a torn suit in a house that was never really hers, mourning a life she destroyed with her own hands. 18 minutes now, Evelyn says, checking her watch. I'd hurry. The black Mercedes pulls onto the tarmac at Incheon at exactly 4:47 a.m. Christmas morning. The sky's still dark, stars visible despite the city lights bleeding into the horizon. Evelyn watches through tinted windows as her father's Gulfstream G650 waits like a sleeping dragon, its running lights the only color against monochrome concrete. James insisted on driving her himself. No chauffeur. No security detail. Just the two of them in leather-scented silence, processing the ruins of his Christmas gala and what it cost them both. Your father plays a long game, he says finally, pulling up beside the jet's stairs. The engines are already warming, a low thrumming that vibrates through the car frame. He always has. Evelyn gathers her coat, cashmere, purchased from the boutique 3 floors below the penthouse where she spent last night. No more borrowed dresses. No more costumes. That's why he still has an empire when others have graves. James's hands tighten on the steering wheel. The dragon tattoo at his collar seems to writhe in the dashboard lights. The documents Regina planted. The ones in that portfolio. He turns to look at her directly. Were they really fake? Evelyn allows herself a small smile. Does it matter now? It matters to me. Then ask yourself this, if they were real, would my father have waited 3 years to use them? Or would he have buried you the moment I reported back? She opens the door, cold air rushing in. Marcus Brooks doesn't collect information for theater, James. He collects it for leverage. There's a difference. She steps out before he can respond. Her heels click against tarmac, each step taking her further from the woman who scrubbed floors and bled into Persian carpets. The flight attendant greets her at the stairs, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes who doesn't ask questions, doesn't comment on the hour or the circumstances. Just offers coffee and a gentle smile. The cabin smells like leather and opportunity. Evelyn settles into cream-colored seats that cost more than Regina's entire wardrobe, accepts Ethiopian dark roast in bone china, and finally, allows her shoulders to drop from the rigid posture she's maintained for 3 years. Her phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. The village is called Yangpyeong. Population 847. No cell service. 1 bus weekly to Seoul. She arrived an hour ago. Housing coordinator gave her a room above the community center. Starts work at the agricultural co-op Monday morning. Picking vegetables. $12 per hour. Below the text, a photo. Regina Park in a donated winter coat too big for her frame, standing in front of a building that's seen better decades, her face a mask of shock and disbelief still processing. No makeup. No jewelry. No audience. Just the Ice Queen, melted down to her component parts and discovering she's made of the same ordinary material as everyone else. Evelyn deletes the message. Not out of mercy, but because Regina Park no longer deserves space in her memory. The pilot's voice crackles through the cabin intercom. Miss Brooks, we're cleared for takeoff. Flight time to Geneva is 11 hours. Your father requested we inform you that he'll meet you at the compound personally. Through the window, Seoul glitters in the pre-dawn darkness. Somewhere in that sprawl of lights, James Hwang is returning to a mansion that suddenly feels too large. Somewhere north, Regina is learning what cold feels like when no one brings you hot chocolate. And Evelyn Brooks is going home to inherit an empire she finally earned. The jet lifts into darkness, climbing toward Christmas morning, leaving the past 3 years behind like a skin she's finally outgrown. And if this story reminded you that true power isn't about breaking others but about maintaining your dignity when they try to break you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications.